July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress formally declared independence from the United Kingdom and started the great experiment known as the United States of America. And in spirit of that experiment, we are going to do a little experiment of our own. We're going to take this buck 110 and replace the scales with gemstones that will hopefully replicate the United States flag on either side of it. So we're going to get a close-up of the gemstones for you, and then we're going to tell you a little bit more about how we're going to do this. So this is how it's going to go. We're going to take the scales off of this knife here, and then we're going to try to replace them with stones that replicate the United States flag. So we have some blue sodalite to go as the field of blue. We have some mookaite to go with the red, and we got some howlite to go with the white. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut out each individual piece and mark them onto the stone, and then almost piece them together as a puzzle onto a liner that matches the same size of the scale. And then what we'll do is we'll try to grind it down to fit this. And then if we can do that from there, things should be looking pretty good. Now, I'm gonna let you know this right now. I've never attempted to do anything like this. I don't even know if it can be done. I don't know if I'm even able to do it. Like I said, it's an experiment just like theirs. I don't know if I'm gonna fail or succeed. So we're gonna go ahead and show you that we already have the lines drawn out on the stones themselves. What we have to do now is we have to get out there to the saw and start cutting them out, and then we can take it from there. So let's get out there. All right, so what we got here is we got the knife, and then we got the scales off. And what I went ahead and did, and I put the scales on the liner, so that way we have like a little mock thing that I can go ahead and just put the face sides up on them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these to kind of fit, and then we're going to have to puzzle piece them together once they're the right size. Try to get them on, and then cut them down to even better size to fit the knife itself. So we're going to cut these down, get these glued onto these scales here, and then we will let it dry and then cut these down and get these onto the knife itself. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so pieces all individually cut. Now we have to piece them together. I'm telling you right now, this has already proven to be one of the hardest ones so far. This is an extremely difficult project, and one of the stripes broke in half in the middle of putting them together. So I'm going to try to mend those together and put them together with some Star Bond thin to help get them all nice and tight and packed together, so we can flatten out the bottoms of them and then make the sides fit. Then we can put them on the knives or the liner, then the knives themselves. We can't put them on the liners just yet because I'm going to have to grind away at the bottom of them after they're all together to make sure there's a nice flat surface on the bottom for it to adhere to the knife. So I have a plan when it comes to that. I'm going to take some of these excess scales here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw them on a paper plate and cut that out and then glue them onto the paper plate. So we'll see how that works out. All right, so here we are. We got the stones all glued together. It looks like a little mess right now, but hopefully we can get this looking nice and good. So we had it glued to the paper plate, ripped the paper plate off the back after it set a little bit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grind the back down to where it sits nice and flat. And with it sitting nice and flat, we can set it onto these, glue them onto these. And then what we can do is then fill in any gaps that we may see with some glue. So I see some. And then we can put them on here. Go ahead and polish them up and see how they look. So we'll see you whenever that's done. What we're going to do next is, now that we have the stones cut individually and flattened out as a group, we're now going to put them on to the liners. Then once they're glued onto the liners, we can take them outside and get them fitted to the knife itself. So I know this seems like a lot of effort. It seems like we're kind of going back and forth a little bit, but it is necessary, I would think, to do it this way. Now, I've never done this before, so it could not be necessary. But I also want to thank Copper Canyon Lapidary. They're the ones that supplied the stones to us. I still bought them, but you know, they have some of the best stones around, so thank you to them. So go check them out. Laura will probably put a link in the description for you. So let's go ahead and start mixing up our epoxy 330 and getting these stones on. Put our hardener on there. All right, so you know what time it is. It's happy little bonding age time. Mix it up nice and murky. So we did run into some stuff this time we had a stone break, but we mended that. I should have done it on camera so y'all could see it. That is my bad, and I have been chastised for doing it. So get this dried off, and then for our happy little bonding agent. I know this seems a little different than what y'all are used to, but to be honest, that's the only way I could thought about it and still got it done. And to be honest, I don't even know if this will actually work. Some of these stones have got gaps in between them. A lot of that is because they were opticoned, right? And opticon makes the stone a lot harder, but in doing so, it makes it a lot harder to break as well. So we'll see how that works out. And we'll fill in a lot of these gaps in between the stones with glue after the hardening and everything like that. And after we get it onto the knife, then we'll start filling in the gaps with glue. Until then, we'll just try to get them close and as tight as possible. And then I want to check this out. We're going to let these dry, and as soon as they're somewhat done drying, we're going to take them out there and we're going to go ahead and cut them to fit into the knife. So we'll cut them to fit into this knife here. And then if all that goes well, Lord willing, we put the scales with the gemstones already on here, glued on, let that dry, and then we fill in any gaps we can find with some glue as well to try to cover up any little gaps. And then we go out there and we cut it. I'm not saying this is going to succeed or not. I genuinely do not know. And I don't even know if it'll look good if I do succeed at it. Again, I genuinely do not know. But tell me now in the comments below what you think. So far out of what you've seen, do you think we're going to succeed? Do you think we're going to fail? Do you think we'll do well, but it just won't look good? Who knows? Tell me what you think. Also, while I got you here, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. And on my wife's website, it's 10% off on everything for the 4th of July. So get yourself something nice. Let's get back to the video. All right, so now that these are drying and they're in a pretty good spot now, they're in a pretty good place, we're going to let them dry. And then as soon as they're done, we're going out there and we're going to go do some cutting. All right, so we're back in the house. We have the scales somewhat cut the size here. I will say that this is going to be a little tricky because some of this is not going to fit exactly onto the knife, which is fine. I mean, I was kind of hoping for some overlap, but we got that big gap right there. I'm going to have to fill that in, and I'm not all too happy about that because I was doing fine, and then it didn't want to catch. This side. It didn't want to slide into the little piece here. So I had to cut it down just a little bit more, and I guess I hit a soft spot in both of the stones and it just went real quick. So that's okay though. We can fill that in with some epoxy and it shouldn't even be noticeable. But let's go ahead and first take our blade out because we don't want that in there when we're done. And so go ahead and start with our epoxy through. You know what that means. It's a happy little bonding agent time. Again. So far it's going okay. It's not exactly what I had hoped for, to be honest. But maybe once this is all done, it'll be looking a lot better than what I think it will. Lord willing, I'll mix this up. I mean, you know what? For such an ambitious project, I don't think we're doing terrible. But it's one of those things to where even though it's like a first time, you still want it to be, I don't want to say perfect, but on par with your other stuff, if that makes sense. And the fact that right now I didn't kind of upsets me. Doesn't mean it's terrible, it just means it's not where I want it right now, if that makes sense. There we go. We're going to let that sit, then we're going to flip this over. And since all right, so we got these on here. I'm gonna have to monitor these as they dry. What I'm thinking about also doing is once they dry up a good bit, and I know this knife's kind of sealed off with the epoxy, what we'll do is we'll come back out here and do some medium glue, help try to fill in any gaps in here that we can't see, and just put it all over the stone. Some medium glue and some filler, and try to fill in any gaps, and then go back out there and try to start cutting. All right, so we're gonna let that dry over a couple hours, and we're gonna see how it's looking, and then I'll probably fill in any gaps I can see with any epoxy. This has definitely been one of the toughest knives I've done so far, so I really hope this thing pays off. But it's very soon 4th of July knife, I believe. Just hope everything turns out all right. Here we are about to start the cutting process on the wheels. Finally, this knife's been quite a doozy so far, but we're about to start. There's some things I didn't quite like about it setting up. It's set up and moved, and now we got that big old gap there as it slid. We can hopefully fill that in with some glue. Shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then I think there may be some gaps up here that we may need to touch up. And then there's some gaps down here as it's set up. It kind of lifted up. So we'll have to finish and fill those in after getting this grind down quite a bit. So it's been a difficult project already. I'm out here sweating. I'm having a hard time. The humidity is crazy because it finally rained last night. But my Lord, I think it's in the mid 90s and it's humid as could be. So go ahead and get it cutting, and then let's go ahead and get to cutting. All right, everybody, so I had to come in and not finish today because a thunderstorm come rolling in. It's almost like I'm being told not to work on this or something. But so this is what we got so far. I'm not particularly thrilled with it. I just don't think they're sitting all well together. I don't know. I'm just not the most thrilled with it as I could be. But we're going to keep working on it and see how we can get this to turn out to look. I will say this right now, some of the yellowish orange of the moo kite starting to peek through. And I think that's what I'm most disappointed with right now. Some of that yellowish orange right there is starting to peek through the knife. So I'm going to try to keep it as far away from that as possible. So I might have to have this bulge out a little higher in order to keep the orangish yellow away from the top. So we'll see how it turns out. Everybody wish me luck. We'll probably start back on this tomorrow. All right, so I want to kind of talk a little bit about what I enjoyed about doing this knife and what I didn't enjoy about doing this knife. Number one, I enjoyed doing this knife mainly because it was the 4th of July knife, and I was hyped up about this for months. I really wanted to get this done and do something nice and special and make it a big kind of event. It definitely was a tough knife to do. I do like a good challenge. This knife altogether, I think I've worked on it for the past 7 days around about there. It's definitely been a long process, and just finding out if I could actually do it. So cutting each of these stones individually and making them into something. I've never done this before, so I really didn't know if I could do it. And I found out I can do it. It's just a little tough. And also probably don't want to opticon them when doing it, just because it takes so much time getting them nice, flat, and perfect. With the opticon, the stone's already hard enough. The opticon makes it ridiculously hard. So that, and also I've noticed with some of these stones, they tend to break in close contact to other stones. So we went ahead and mended that. Also in these gaps here in between the stones, some are bigger than other ones, and that's probably because of how hard it is to get these things flat because of the opticon and everything like that, on top of them being naturally flat stones. Getting them flat, definitely tough. But I'm gonna be honest with you, it's probably one of the more funner experiments we've done on the show. And it's mainly because it was so challenging. It was challenging to get them to fit right. It was challenging wrapping my mind around how this is gonna work, how they're gonna look, obsessing over how perfect I can get them. And let's be honest, I didn't even get them perfect. You know what I mean? I have to fill in some gaps with some glue. Just something that needs to be done. But yeah, tell me what you think about it below. All right, tell me if you think this experiment succeeded or failed. Much effort's gone into this. I'm pretty happy with it, but I'm not 100% thrilled because of the, some of the things I already told you. Filling in some of those gaps. I wish I could have got them a little more perfect, closer together. This redstone right here is a little bigger than the rest of them, so it kind of looks like it flares out like a duckbill, a duckbill quacking at you. But other than that, I'm actually pretty happy with the knife. But I don't want to be the one to call this a success or a failure. I want y'all to tell me what you think. Was this knife a success or a failure? What do you like about it? What do you think we can do better? What maybe you'd like to see next time? I think our next big event will be for the Marine Corps' birthday. Since I am a Marine, I served from 2010 to 2013. I want to do something special for the Marine Corps' birthday, and I have some ideas in my head on how to do that. It'll probably be another buck. But it's definitely going to be a unique buck that you haven't seen before. And yeah, y'all tell me what you think below about this knife here. Do we succeed or fail? Let me know.